Hi, my name is Sjatar. I wanted to share my starter. I want to disclaim that I do not make any promises of viability or strength for this build. While know that it is what players look for in a starter, I'm just a little bit excited to tell you about a big buff to one of my favorite builds, Stormburst Decay. In the background, I will be playing some mapping footage of my old and now quite weak Stormburst Decay Juggernaut. This build was more built to be a tank instead of dealing a lot of damage. I think it is around 0.75 mil DPS or less. Do not be alarmed, this is about what you expect from Decay, but the build I will show today has the potential to get to 2.5 mil plus Decay DPS, which I promise is quite impressive. Introduction. The first time I was introduced to Stormburst Decay was from That's Real Nito, in his third episode of Noteworthy Interactions about 3 years ago. His original video will be linked below. The build is based on the unique mechanic of Stormburst not found anywhere else, where the orb that the skill creates deals more skill damage depending on the duration the orb has left. Weirdly or happily, this scales Decay. This gives a unique way to scale the damage of Decay by getting a lot of duration of Stormburst. I've done this build 2 or 3 times before and I felt that the duration scaling was soft locked at around 4 seconds. At 4 seconds, it was not really worth getting more duration. I've not yet said how much damage this gives. If the orb explodes with 4 seconds left of its duration, you will gain a whopping 650% more damage on Decay, making it actually deal damage. I will talk more about the exact numbers in the math chapter. Don't get too scared of the naming of this chapter, it's mostly a guide on how to get correct numbers in PoE. 3.23 changes. So what changed? Well, in 3.23 Affliction League, almost all quality stats on skills have been changed. Some skills have been buffed significantly, and that includes Stormburst. You gain an additional 0.4 seconds of duration on Stormburst at 20% quality. As the base duration is 1.2 seconds already, this represents a 33% more multiplier in duration. This is pretty huge, as the soft cap of 4 seconds now becomes around 5.3 seconds. Because Decay is a support gem, we want to scale the level of supports in our main link. Therefore, Enhanced now becomes one of the best links for this build. This is because we increased the level of Enhanced to level 6. This gives an additional 40% quality, resulting in a total increase in base duration by 1.2 seconds. If you're taking notes, this is 100% more duration from the new quality and Enhance. So how does this affect our damage? Well, because we are effectively doubling the duration of Stormburst, and now getting a duration of 8 seconds instead of 4 seconds, we can now just double the previous more multiplier of 650%. We're now getting 1400% more damage. We had to kick out one support though, but this was infused channeling, which gave us 25% more damage. So in the end, the quality change did not double our damage, but it results in about 6% more damage compared to before. Build. So with the major buff explained, I will now talk about how I will build around Decay. Decay is not a spell, an attack, an ailment, and does not conform to society's rules. It's just a damage over time. There's multiple ascendancies that would work for Decay. I think at the moment, the strongest one is actually Pathfinder. Ascendancy. If you asked me a couple of leagues ago if I would do a Pathfinder in hardcore, I would say no. This is because there was an Arcnem mod that would remove flask effects and also tormented spirits, specifically Thief Ghost, to the Quinn Rip. But the Arc Nemesis mod was changed. You can also prevent Thief Ghost from possessing rare monsters. This makes Pathfinder a much more reliable ascendancy for hardcore. Pathfinder is not only a lot of defense, but also offers a lot of damage with the increased effect of Wither. Ranger is also close to one of the duration clusters on the passive tree, and therefore is an excellent candidate for the build. Defenses. The defenses of a Pathfinder is mostly solved, but I think I have some novel mechanics I want to try out. The base defense of the build will be Big Permanent Flask, Triple Ellie, and 1 Jade. We'll also get a buffed Life Flask to sustain our life. Because we will have sustain from a Life Flask, it is possible to get Petrified Blood and be at full life. You might scream internally right now and ask where the Quicksilver is, but I think I have an answer for you later. The new quality of Enduring Cry, which now gives 40% increased cooldown recovery rate from the quality of the gem, and because this build will get a large amount of increased duration, it is possible to get 100% uptime of the Enduring Cry buff. It gives 2% increased physical damage reduction and 2% elemental resistance per endurance charge. It is also possible to increase the effect of this buff. In the PoB, we achieve a total of about 60% increased Warcry buff effect. The build gets 4 endurance charges, but because of the buff we effectively get 7. This is at the price of 4 passive nodes and 1 searing implicit on the body armor. Additionally, I was inspired to use the Oath of the Magi passive. This comes from the Warden of the Magi Ascendancy in 3.23, Affliction League. This grants different bonuses depending on what gear piece you do not have gems socketed in. For this build, I will try to keep one 4-link open, either to have permanently 30% increased movement speed, or gem swap to have either 25% increased life or move speed. Having the move speed from Oath of the Magi will most likely make up for the fact that we do not get a Quicksilver. I will also try to keep the chest piece free from gems to double the defenses granted by it. For this build, we will get a rare chest piece with a ton of evasion rating and then double it. With flasks and some evasion rating plus iron reflexes, we will be able to gain close to 40k armor. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to 50k and get a fully powered molten shell after some optimizations. Gems. Because I want to use Oath of the Magi, the gem setup will be a bit particular. We have one 6-link in a weapon and 2 4-links. This is actually not enough for everything we like to have. The weapon will be our main link and it is fully used. The helmet or gloves will have Wither plus Spell Totem, Increased Duration and Enduring Cry. Remaining will have Malevolence, Petrified Blood, Despair and a movement skill. Absent from these links is Molten Shell. There's 2 solutions I have for this. Either we get an unset ring and socket one of the 0 links into there, or we potentially corrupt one of the rings to have a level 23 Despair on it. Both of these solutions give 1 extra socket, which solves our issue. I believe that the unset idea is the easiest, but a level 23 Despair corrupt is the strongest. Our main skill will be Storm Burst, Decay, Enhance, Increased Duration, Efficacy, Void Manipulation. I will talk more about the weapon in the gear chapter. Gear. The gear is quite box standard, except for 2 unique pieces and our weapon. Our weapon is ideally a perfect cane of the Kulamak. When I mean perfect, one that looks like this. It has +3 to socketed support gems, chaos damage over time multiplier, and chaos damage. There is no way to craft a better weapon than this. Most likely a rare staff can be used early on in the build, but later a Kulamak is preferred. +3 to supported gems and damage over time multiplier Kulamak can reach 2 mil decay DPS, and a 3 mod Kulamak can get to 2.5 mil plus. My character, I will only aim to get a 2 mod Kulamak to keep budget down. We have 2 other unique items that are worth talking about. The helmet is an Eber unification. It gives a powerful skill called Void Gaze that triggers on using other skills. It debuffs nearby enemies with -20% chaos res. On my character, it presents 16% more damage. But it could be changed to a rare piece, as getting the intelligence for it is a bit painful. The second unique item is Fated End. Fated End cannot be represented as a more multiplier exactly, but on the low end it's quite equivalent to a 10% more damage. It also gives a lot of intelligence, which is needed to meet the intelligence requirement of the build. Depending on the price, it might be a good candidate to corrupt to get a level 23 Despair skill. Passives. I will not talk about the tree too much, as it's most likely going to change during the evolution of the build. I think it's important to talk about the double large cluster jewels I have in the build, however. Because Decay is hard to scale, the only increased damage that applies to it is damage over time and chaos damage. As such, large chaos damage clusters become one of the main sources of increased damage for the build. We get 2 of them. The notables are not super important, as long as you get 3 decent notables together with Wicked Paw. Wicked Paw gives 5% increased skill effect duration. It's important to get skill effect duration up to a point, so while I plan to get 3 of them, 1 additional on a medium cluster, it might not be necessary to get 3 depending on other upgrades. More about this in the math chapter. If you've gotten to this point, I admire your courage and dedication. The Stormburst duration stacking is not linear. It works on meeting thresholds of 0.4 seconds duration. As such, it is important to get to a new threshold, but it is not that important to get duration when you cannot get to another threshold. This is what I meant with that it might not be needed to get 3 Wicked Paw notables, as 5% increased duration is not enough to get us to another duration threshold. I want to note here that it might be necessary to land in between a threshold, as if you land exactly on 8 seconds, it might be extremely hard or impossible to cancel channeling to guarantee having 8 seconds left of its duration. Anyways, In the PB, we can see some custom configurations that look suspicious. We have 105% more duration and 1400% more chaos damage over time. The 105% more duration comes from the quality of Stormburst. Previously, I stated that we will get 6% quality on Stormburst, but ideally, you want to corrupt Stormburst to have 23% quality, giving a total of 63% quality. This results in an added base duration of 1.26 seconds, which is equivalent to a 105% more duration modifier. We want to now calculate the more damage Stormburst gets from its duration. After calculating the correct duration given by the quality, we want to divide the duration by 0.4. In the POB, Stormburst has a duration of 8.184 seconds. This gives a threshold number of 20.46. So we'll land in between the threshold of 20 and 21. We want to floor this value to 20 before we continue. We then calculate the base skill damage we would get from Stormburst. 20 times 0.75 equals 15. Because we want to have an exact multiplier of 15, we need to subtract this number by 1, as POB will add 1 to any more multipliers of damage. The final more multiplier will be 1400% more damage. While POB will get support for the correct duration, it cannot and has never been able to calculate the damage of decay on Stormburst, so we need to do this if we want to estimate our damage. Ending words. I want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions about this build, don't hesitate to ask in the comments or join my stream at Twitch. Also, tell me what your favorite transfigured gem is in the comments.
Do you see now what we face, Oriathan? That was what slept within the creatures just near here. What darkness sleeps within me, or within you? And if we can draw out that darkness, might we then be able to draw out that which makes us, us? Think on this, for when we next meet, we shall begin to seek the answer. Good day.